This is For the Creators.
Yo, welcome back.
Welcome
to
back.
Episode of
For the Creators.
Creativity X Culture in the house.
In the house, your bi-weekly catch up with what's happening in the world.
I actually enjoy these episodes because it just gives me the opportunity to just talk on things that I've been wanting to talk about.
Yeah, man.
Ain't really got nobody to talk to because everyone wants to talk on WhatsApp.
Oh boy. So yeah, maybe we should talk about that first, or do you want to talk on the other subject?
Yeah, we could talk about that. I'll jump into Mary Alice, but I feel like because it is such an issue, because until I just said it just now, I actually never really thought about it. Like, you don't have the opportunity to have these like in-depth conversations and even discuss topical issues except for in the comment under someone's post on social media, or maybe just sharing it with someone on WhatsApp and exchanging a few words and voice notes, but not really getting the opportunity to discuss it and share your perspective on it.
And what is a discussion? Like, I feel a discussion is real time. Like, I say something, I can read... if it's person to person, I can read your body language and I'm awaiting a reply. It's not like I say something, then you go away, you cook dinner. Do you know what I'm saying? Can you imagine that in real life? Like, you go away, you cook dinner, you come back, and then you reply. I'll be like, what? What kind of conversation is this?
Do you know what the worst is, yeah? Do the worst thing about WhatsApp? Do you know when, like, you were having a conversation and the exact thing happens with someone and then they pop up, and you know when you can see like a snippet of what their response was and you're thinking like, what were we talking about again?
Yeah.
And then when you open it, you're just like, oh yeah, because you completely forgot what you were saying to them before, because in that moment it was juicy, but then now, because they've responded 2 hours later, you're just like, okay, the momentum's gone.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And so, I mean, for everyone listening, the reason why we was talking about that just before we hit record was we wonder how high performers in terms of like the world of creativity, if they're using WhatsApp like the rest of the world are. Because, let's be real, it can be a massive distraction. Let's say like in my example, like I could be making a song or something like that, and you know, you're really in the zone, and then something could pop. If I go onto WhatsApp and then I see something in, it could be family, it could be friends or whatever, things that you care about, you know, and something pops up, it takes you away from that moment. Do you know what I'm saying? And I wonder how the best minds in the world are using social media compared to the rest of the world.
I really do think that you have to zone out, because I know for myself personally there is a distraction. Because when you're in that chain of thought, could you just imagine like sometimes a really good idea pops into your head, and if you don't write that down, then 2 minutes later you can't even really remember like what it was about. Because remember when we were having our meeting the other day, and as soon as things popped in our head, we literally had to put them down. So imagine
for real,
you being halfway through like making a really sick beat and you're in that zone, and then you snap out of it because you're responding to a message which may totally distract you and then could potentially change your mood as well.
Yeah, it could.
So then when you go back to what you're doing, like, you no longer feel like doing it, because depending on what the message is, it can either really depress you or just really throw you off. So I feel like high performers probably at some point have to say, no, like, this is what we're focusing on and this is what we're going to do. Like, because when you really think about these things, if something's really important, someone will ring you.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. I completely agree.
I think that must be it, because I can't imagine like someone like Beyonce and how meticulous she is about her craft is really that bothered about things like WhatsApp. Another thing that I really appreciate about Beyonce,
our third host,
which is relevant to a lot of the topics that we're going to discuss throughout this episode, is the fact that she somehow managed to keep her life private. And I remember being at one stage being a critic of that. I'm like, no one really knows Beyonce. You know, why is she like that? But then now I really understand why she's done it.
Yeah.
Because there's some people where their life is so exposed that they feel the need to overshare. And now we're so used to people oversharing that when someone doesn't share,
there's something wrong with
that. It's like,
that.
for example, it's like when I go to work, I choose what I say to my work colleagues because they're my colleagues at work. They're not necessarily my friends.
No.
And if you look at things in that capacity, you would go and say these things to some of your clients or even your customers. That's like, say you work in Sainsbury's and every customer that comes in, oh yeah, I had a baby the other day. And then me and the dad broke up. And then, you know, he's cheating on me and everything else. You wouldn't share that with the average consumer or customer. So why should they share that with us?
Exactly. It's funny, put differently. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were saying, and this is to do with food, but they were saying that why is it that organic food is labeled organic when that's really the default? Everything else should be labeled as added this, added that. Like, it shouldn't be labeled organic because that is how food is grown. So in the same way that our lives are kind of private by default, you know, why is it different that, you know, people opt for that way of life? It's a crazy world we live. We live in some inversion of life. It's funny.
It's so funny because literally, like I said to you, I've been on this spiritual journey this week, and I feel like every single thing that we know to be real is the opposite of what is real. So it's almost like relearning what you should already know, but we're so far gone into this rabbit hole that it's difficult to pull yourself out, and it's comfortable in the rabbit hole as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just strange.
Really strange. Well,
life right now is really, really strange because, you know, we were talking about WhatsApp because we just don't have normal conversations, and then we were touching on some of the things like, you know, it's so important to hear the tone of someone's voice.
Yes.
To determine what their words actually mean. When something's written down, that can be misconstrued. And I remember one time I did a listening course. I don't know if it was a listening or a writing course, but basically it was a course it was a listening course, and it was basically what they did. They got us to say different sentences like, did you know that the man murdered his wife? And you can say that like, oh, did you know that the man murdered his wife? Or you could be like, did you know that he murdered his wife? Or depending on which word you place the emphasis on, or did you know that he murdered his wife?
Wow, yeah.
It's like it was such an interesting thing because depending on which word you put the emphasis on, it totally changed the meaning of the sentence, and that's always stuck with me. And that's one of the issues with WhatsApp.
Yes, because
I can interpret what you've written in whatever way that I want to. It doesn't mean that that's how you meant it. That's how I interpreted it. And everything's just open to assumption these days.
Yeah. And it's dangerous, man. It is dangerous. A lot of assumptions, a lot of distractions. It's a weird world we live in. And on that topic of a weird world we live in, what was the topic you wanted to discuss about Jussie? Is that how you pronounce his name? Is it Jussie Smollett?
I think it's Jussie Smollett, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who Jussie Smollett is, or if you don't know, I don't know where you've been, but if you've been under a rock or you've just been somewhere without no data, Jussie Smollett is basically an actor on Empire. He's well known for the role that he plays in Empire as Cookie's son. So recently, I don't know if it was like a week or maybe a couple of weeks ago now, he was in the news because allegedly he'd been attacked by these white supremacists who called him out for being black and also for being gay. And allegedly they beat him up, they placed a noose around his neck, and they also poured bleach over him.
Yeah.
Well, some people had reservations about that. Me personally, and I'll hold my hand up because I've known Jussie through social media. Which is so weird because when you think about it, just through his persona on social media, I was like, hell no, he wouldn't make up something like that. He's a really nice guy.
Well, also, why would anyone make up something like that? You know, so you're coming from that angle.
In this climate.
Yeah, especially in this
it's
climate.
Like, the minute you hear something like that, as a nice human being, you're going to feel sorry for them. And your first thing is like, they're the victim. You're not going to call out the victim because
Sure.
Why would you make something like that?
Sure.
So, as the story's unraveled, I think one of the things I've realised from watching like Criminal Minds and them kind of programs, I used to think that I'm like a crime scene investigator at one point, but you see when you're acting, because he's an actor, so I feel like like when you're trying to set up a crime, there's so many other things that go into it. So if you're a detective, you would know some of the things to look out for. And apparently when they found him, he was just wearing the noose around his neck. Like if it was a necklace or something, and then he was like pointing at cameras and things like that. When you're traumatized by a situation, you don't even want to talk.
No.
Yeah? And then he took like 13 days or something to hand in his mobile phone, and the whole thing it was just getting shadier and shadier by the moment. Anyway, come to find out, he paid 2 Nigerian brothers $3,500 to attack him. But previously, before that as well, he'd already, I think, he faked hate mail to himself. With the same issues as well. So the reason why we're discussing this, before I say that, he's potentially now going to be charged with filing a false police report on hate crime, and he may face 1 to 3 years in prison.
Wow.
Because of that.
Wow.
Well, our podcast is not really about discussing things like this, but the main reason why I brought it up is because I think the lines between our personal personas on social media and our craft as creatives are somehow blurred. And
Definitely.
where do you draw the line between your personal life and your acting career? Because they were basically saying the reason that he's done this is because he feels that as if he's not being paid enough for his role on Empire, and potentially if his role on Empire comes to an end, that if he's seen as, an LGBTQ advocate or someone who is an activist fighting against white supremacy and fighting for gay rights, then that will somehow boost his public profile.
Wow.
And then in turn help him to make more money as an actor.
Which in a very cynical world, I mean, if he pulled it off, I mean, because obviously most of the world on Twitter and Instagram, as caring human beings would, like jumped in his defense initially with the story that was presented. So in that regard, if it stayed as it was, his, for lack of a better term, his social stock would have gone up, and then he probably would have got what he desired in terms of more pay and more of a, his brand becomes bigger, so therefore he'd have more say in negotiations and all that kind of stuff. It's a really weird world we live in that regard, but it's a dangerous game, man, because now it's backfired for him personally, but also for the people that he's representing, it's backfired because it's crossed many lines in terms of politics, and you could be putting real people in danger. Do you know what I mean? All because you wanted clout, essentially. Yeah,
and I was watching like The View, and it said something like between 2 to 8% of people who are, say, victims of rape, actually lie about it, which means that the other 92% or 98%,
the vast majority,
are actually telling the truth. But in most cases, they don't even want to come forward because they don't think that people will believe them. Because of people like that. Now, through him doing something like this, it means people are not going to want to come forward, because the first thing that people are going to do is assume that the victim is lying.
Yeah.
So he's actually done his community a disservice by being selfish, essentially. Do you know what I mean? And I think the other thing that jumps out for me with this conversation is the fact that how careful we have to be, again, about making assumptions. And, you know, as good-natured human beings, we want to feel sorry for the victim. But before we start voicing our opinions and things like that, I think now we're all going to be a little bit more cautious about making sure that we have all of the facts up front.
Well, this is a perfect time to kind of pose a counter argument to all of this, and that's, even right now, we don't know all the facts. We know we've been told two different sides of the story, and now obviously everyone's kind of siding on whatever. Like, but until I suppose the story's wrapped up, it's probably not a wise move to make an opinion either way. Do you know what I mean? Because it could be one story. Literally, it could be a story against another, and we don't know which. There could be another twist in the story. So, and the meanwhile,
like, this needs its own flipping storyline on Empire. Like, shit.
Exactly, man. And there you go. That in itself, where is the line between what we're watching on Netflix? I don't even know if Empire's on Netflix, but what we're watching on Netflix and real life, it's like everything's becoming one mad blur. Like your persona online and your persona in real life, like which one is real? Like it's getting all so confusing.
Because social media is essentially reality TV, just in a different context. So, for example, before, if you saw Empire, that is the only interaction that you're going to have with the actors and actresses. So for me, most of the relationship and the way that I know about Jussie is because of his relationship with Taraji, and they're always like pranking each other and things like that. So that's kind of what endeared me to him.
Right.
So that's what I was saying, through his persona on the reality TV, which is social media. That's where I jumped to the conclusion that he's a nice guy. I don't know this guy from nowhere.
Yeah.
And social media, again, we know that everyone is putting on an act. So your social media persona is not even really your real persona anyway. So it's just like...
crazy.
Yeah, it's just all blurred lines.
Literally. But I think...
which is actually interesting for us to go into the next topic, which is Kim Kardashian calling out fast fashion brands.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
Which is relevant to this because most of them copy her outfits off social media.
Yeah, and fast fashion is the right term because it's the speed at which they're copying. It's crazy. Obviously, like back in the day, if something was on, I don't know, the runway or, you know, something hit the high street, obviously you're gonna get knockoffs, but the speed at which you get the real one in the knockoffs there would be some sort of lag. But now because of Instagram, you know, as soon as a famous person wears something, like these brands, I don't even know the names of them, but
so it's like Fashion Over it, because I think with Kim, she put on an outfit to attend the Fashion Awards recently.
Yeah.
And literally, she wore the outfit the next day the outfit was on Fashion Over.
That's nice.
And the thing is as well, is that technology plays an important part. I don't think Fashion Over actually made the dress, but you can digitally put the dress on the model.
Yeah.
Because of technology. So remember,
and then just
you
get
can
pre-sales.
order something. It's not going to be sent out to you the same day.
No.
So you can put it on pre-order. So what these brands are doing is they're not making the outfits within a day. They're literally just drawing the outfit on the model and then figure out how to make it later.
Of course.
And then it's done. So it's taking it to the next extreme.
Yeah.
The other side of the argument is that people like Kim Kardashian, their whole culture, they've thrived off being copied.
True.
That is essentially their market. So if, for example, there would be no KKW Beauty and everything else if they weren't thriving off the fact that women want to look like them and emulate their look at a lower price.
So it's almost like...
you can sell me, It's
almost like, okay, copy me, but just allow it for a week. Do you know what I mean? Like, not so fast. But I suppose as well, like, I think I remember seeing her Twitter thread about this, and she was saying, You know, she works with designers for months, sometimes even years, working on these outfits and getting the look right and stuff like that. So I can understand for the artists themselves, you know, it's a massive opportunity for them, and to get their designs essentially in front of the eyes of the world, for it to then be copied straight away. I can feel for them in that sense. Me personally, I'll be happy that, you know, 150 million people are going to be seeing that, and then potentially loads of people more are going to be wearing a knockoff version. I mean, I wouldn't, because you're not going to, it's not like those 150 million people can buy the dress you're
for £1,000 anyway.
No, exactly. So definitely two sides to the coin.
For me, the reason why we brought this up is because when we had Wale on season 1, who's a fashion designer as well, and he was discussing a similar topic, but it was a different time. So he was talking about it from the point where people were making counterfeit garments or counterfeit of his designs back in the market days.
Yes.
So this was like market stall days, before it was even like
online
internet
stores.
days. You know what I mean? So it's like, for example, a market stall, it will take that whole production way longer than it's taken now.
Way longer.
On top of that, when something's placed on someone like Kim Kardashian, it's almost like you have collateral, because what you know that if Kim Kardashian's wearing that, it's gonna sell on your website, without a doubt. Even like you said, for the designer, even though the average Joe who's buying the knockoff, they won't be able to afford that 1,000 design.
No.
But then there are women who will be able to afford that design, who would also go out and buy that. And then also it's aspirational as well.
Yeah.
So you might have a younger woman who was not aware of your brand, who would now put aside maybe $1,000 to buy a dress for a special event. So it's like, where do you draw the line? But then on the other hand, I can also understand the argument of, you've come up with this really unique design. I think my question is anything actually original now?
Yeah, that's the thing. And should there be, you know, in the same way that these fashion companies can digitize their version of a garment and put it on a model and then put it up for pre-order, there should be a technology that creates a royalty for the original artist. You know, if you can clearly see that it's a copy, like as worn by this person, you know, then the original designer should get a cut of that. You know, it's almost like in
do you know what ASOS stands for?
Huh?
Do you know what ASOS stands for?
As seen on screen. Innit?
Or as seen on stars.
Oh, is it?
Which is more or less the same thing. Seen on screen or seen on stars is the same thing.
Oh.
They started this trend. So when we saw something on Beyonce or whatever, we went on ASOS so we can get the knockoff. This is not something new.
Yeah.
It's literally
it's just sped
how
up.
all of these brands have started. I think the reason why Kim Kardashian's upset is because they've been doing it to Yeezy, so it's now affecting her pocket.
Oh, okay.
It's not so much about the other designers, it's because it's impacting Yeezy. But then the other catch-22 for me as well is the fact that when I look at Yeezy style, they just knock off of the 80s. So where do we draw the line? Like, nothing is original. Fashion just goes around and around again. So yeah, you might change the colours and you may make a slight alteration to the fabric. But if you're someone who's followed fashion, you know that there's only certain cuts you can do. Women can wear leggings, straight leg, high-waisted, boot cut. There's only so many styles. It's every year we either have wedges for summer or we have flats.
Yeah.
It's the same thing over and over. So I can understand both sides of the argument, but...
Exactly. And I mean, look, it's just like we said, it's always been the same thing. It's just the speed of it has changed and how wide it's got, like in terms of it being a global, I was going to say problem, but it's not necessarily a problem, but it's just a global result of technology. You know, who's it really hurting? You know, I think because even people, even like people that follow her were responding. It was like, well, you know, we can't afford what you got, Kim. This is how we get it. You're selling us this aspirational life. This is how we get it.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, it's like it's a double-edged sword, because when you do it, it's okay. When someone else does it to you, it's not, because there's Kim Kardashian's been called out, for example, with their kids' clothing line, where another company sent them a sample of a jacket for Saint, and Kim made the exact same design and put it on their kids' clothing store, and they had to take it down. When I say to you, it was the exact same thing. It was exact. Then there was the issue of Kendall and Kylie being called out for using like images of Tupac and Biggie and all of that they hadn't paid for the original art from the artist and things like that. So it's like, is it really about the fact that people are copying? Because this has been going on. Whole companies have been created, like with ASOS, like I just said, because of this.
It's not a new phenomenon.
So it's not a new phenomenon.
Well,
it's
bootlegging
just now
is a new
because
phenomenon anyway.
Exactly. It's just
and to put it in music terms, all of Kanye's original like songs that came out were
remixes.
Yeah, the samples. So you know, like creativity that creates more creativity. Like you get inspired by something. Nothing's original in that sense.
Yeah, because everything starts with a thought, but what was the initial thought? And it's difficult for us not to be influenced by what we see, you know? So, yeah, Kim.
Yes.
Sorry, love. I don't think anyone's really buying your story. As sad as it is, that obviously if you're a young designer and you're just coming up, you know, it's difficult. But it's just one of those things where social media and the internet is a beast.
The game is the game.
It could work. It can work in your favor, or it can work against you.
It's also how you play it, though. It's like you can know what the lay of the land is, and you know if things do go that way, you can pre-plan to make it work for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, I hear that. Which takes us nicely into talking about Jay-Z and Beyonce and the video that they created to accept their
Brit Award.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
What did you think of the video?
Did you watch the Brits?
No.
Yeah, neither did I.
Sorry. I was actually going to ask you, like, how important do you think it is to have these award shows anymore?
I used to really like them. Obviously being in music, it's sold to be like in this aspirational thing, and it is nice, but I don't know, man. I don't know how much of it is an agenda in terms of who's being given awards and stuff like that. And you know, like we've seen in the past with like the Oscars and the Grammys that they've been called out on certain things like lack of diversity at the Oscars, because there was a movement, Oscars So White or something like that, a couple of years back. And then the Grammys, with it being the main awards were going out to male artists, and then there was a big reverse on that this year. And it's not a coincidence in that, you know, there was more female artists releasing albums. No, there wasn't. You know, it's just there's a different agenda, you know, and that just makes me kind of discredit the whole thing slightly. Don't get me wrong, I still want a Grammy because that's the way I've been conditioned. But
look, yeah, just when I'm up there, just give me my Grammy.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
But it's funny, like even when Drake went up, they cut off his speech because he kind of criticized him. Said,
he was calling them out.
Yeah, he said like, don't make not winning one of these make you feel like you're not winning, because if people are out there singing your songs and you're on tour, you've already won. And I do agree with that, and I agree with, you know, I think things like end of year lists, awards and all of that, although they make a few people feel special, they make the majority feel like they've lost, when in reality living a life that you love, doing what you love is winning.
Because that's the thing. I also think it's just because when you really peel back the layers and you look at who's making these decisions, it's just the same group of people, and that's why diversity is necessary, and also why diversity can become a problem, because it's just a new buzzword, and so people are misusing it. So on the face of it, you kind of be like, all right, cool. So, you know, a lot of more independent artists and younger artists have been nominated over, say, major artists like Beyonce and Jay-Z this year. But is that for the right reason? Are they doing it because these people, and not to say that none of them, that they didn't deserve it, not to say Cardi B didn't deserve it and things like that, but it's just like, what is the motive for doing it? Is it coming from a genuine place, or is it just coming from a place where we can go online and we can see the number of streams that someone's video received, we can see how many album sales that they have? The world is so transparent now. It's like, okay, so what is the criteria for someone to win an award? Like, really? Because if this person's selling out concerts internationally, they've had number ones, they've had how many streams and all of this, why haven't they won an award? Like, yeah,
like how much of it is listening to what the world is saying as opposed to like an academy's opinion on something? I think they need to do a better job of, like you said, the criteria. So if they're saying, oh, an album of the year, the reason why we look into the album of the year is we look into the songwriting, we look into how it's been produced, the duration it took to record and write, like the marketing behind it and how it was received in the world in terms of, sales and like number ones and things like that. Like if they had a better way of telling that story, I think it would be a bit more legit in that sense. But it just feels a bit also, like you get an award. You get an award.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, for an artist, a lot of these things are aspirational, but what are you aspiring to? Like, how are you supposed to achieve something if you don't even know how you can get it? Like, exactly. If there's no criteria. So, for example, if I know that in order to get album of the year, I need to have achieved in excess of that. For example, when a record goes, gold, platinum, whatever, there's figures in place. So, once you get that amount of streams or whatever, then your album's going to go platinum.
Yeah.
But these that you literally don't know what the criteria is, they could just literally be picking names out of a hat.
Yeah, for all we know.
We're just going to give it to that person. So I think that's why they've become a little bit redundant. But the reason why I mentioned Beyonce and Jay-Z again seem to be our favourite couple. Beyonce's kind of been like a co-host
That's like, our third
on the show from ages ago.
From first episode.
Literally. But they did something for me which was very powerful, because they used the Ape Shit, a remake of the Ape Shit video,
which is their song,
to collect to collect the Brit Award. And the reason why that stood out for me is because obviously Jay-Z and Beyonce were not nominated for any Grammys this year. And they didn't attend the Grammys.
I'm sure
but they attended the party.
I think they
didn't go to the Grammys. Were they at the Grammys?
No, I don't think they were nominated for any of the televised ones. I think...
no, they weren't nominated. I don't think they were nominated for any.
I think their joint album won it definitely won something.
Oh, it won something. Okay, take that back.
Yeah, it definitely won something.
Anyway.
The reason I know that is because a producer that I follow called Illmind, he's got a podcast called Black Chat as well. He won a Grammy for being on the album.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, take that back.
But it wasn't on any of the televised ones, because there's loads of categories in the Grammys. There's like 90.
Yeah, I think they had something like 84 categories.
Yeah, exactly. And how many? I think maybe 10 of them get shown on TV.
Yeah.
The biggest scrap is that producer of the year doesn't get shown, which annoys me. But anyway.
So they used Ape Shit to accept the Brit Awards. And in Ape Shit, if you know the lyrics of the song for Ape Shit, Jay-Z basically said, "Tell the Grammys, fuck that 0 for Ape Shit." Basically saying, fuck it. If you're how are you gonna nominate me for 8 different Grammys and give me 0? And then obviously one of the things that was really powerful about that video as well was the fact that it featured Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex. Oh my God. The Duchess of Sussex, styled as Queen Victoria, which I feel was really powerful because obviously she's been called out a lot in the media and everything, and been really scrutinized by the press.
Yeah. I found that was really interesting. Being that it's such a weird, again, it's another weird thing. Being that Meghan Markle's American, and this is like the most British of British culture, the royal family. Jay-Z and Beyonce having a semi-like political message at the Brit Awards, them being American as well. It was just, because no one from over here could have done that.
We see how you're treating our girl.
Yeah, no one from over here could have. I don't think they would have even had the kind of gumption or courage to do that anyway.
To think of it,
no, exactly. So yeah, I found that really interesting.
No, but the thing is as well, like, obviously thought went into it because it wasn't like it was some slapdash painting. It looked
for sure, exactly, yeah.
So that person obviously took time to paint it, and it made a statement straight away.
That's a very good point. In the original, it wasn't flippant.
In the original one, it was it the Mona Lisa that they were standing in front of?
That's right.
And then they've done it on purpose now, or it's Meghan Markle. But they're just like, I really love them as a couple because they're standing up for all the things that they believe in, and they're using their celebrity to actually discuss and shine a spotlight on major issues. So I don't know if you saw that for Black History Month, this month, Beyonce made a collage on her website.
Yeah, I did.
Which just featured all of these really powerful people, like Black people from not just people from the past, but future people who they're predicting are going to be doing really well in the future.
Yeah,
and some of the names on there I didn't even know about. So I appreciate them for that. And obviously Jay-Z's working with Meek Mill on the whole reform of
justice reform,
the criminal justice, like the criminal justice system in America. And obviously, if you remember Jay-Z's recent album as well, so it's really good to see that they're an example of how you use your celebrity for the right reason, rather than use your celebrity to reinforce the rhetoric that's been forced down our throat daily. That's not really making a positive contribution to society.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, and also Jay-Z forked out to get some really good lawyers for the whole 21 Savage situation.
Yeah. Whilst other people were just busy making memes.
Yeah, literally. Literally. It's like, what are you actually doing about it, you know?
Be the change that you want to see. And I think that's what's really powerful, because even back to things that Beyonce did when she made her first cover, but not the first cover, when she was the first Black woman to be featured on the September issue of Vogue. Sorry. And she made a point of it being that they had to use a Black photographer, and who would have known that there had never been a Black photographer featured on the cover shot?
No, exactly.
So, use what you have for the greater good instead of just promoting ignorance.
And I think it's also about knowing your why. You know, it's judging by their actions, they clearly know their why, and they know it's bigger than them, and they're in this position of great power and influence that, you know, they can really elevate and use, like you said, use their celebrity and resources for the greater good. So commend that.
And it's also probably because they're now thinking about the world that they're going to create for their children.
Yeah, for sure. It's perspective.
Yeah. And then you're growing up now, you have more responsibilities, you brought life into this world, so you can no longer flippantly say, oh, if I die, that's it. No, you created life, so you have to create a world that you'd want them to live in.
For sure.
So just before we finish,
Yeah.
If you haven't checked out last week's episode with Mary Alice Stack, please do. Ryan had a really good sit down with her.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I think all creatives could do with listening to that, because Mary Alice is the CEO of Creative United, and they're all about making creatives' visions come to life. And you do that by viewing it in a very realistic and actionable manner. You know, it's about viewing your creativity as a business, and your ventures as a business, and really sitting down and thinking, okay, this is this grand thing that I want to do. You know, how do I really make that possible? And you know, and I think creatives can kind of misconstrue that as something like, being realistic, that's a negative. Like, let me just be airy fairy and just do what I'm doing. But you know, this is a real world that we live in, and your art has to exist in that world. So in order to get it out there, there's very realistic obstacles that you're going to face, but they don't necessarily have to be obstacles if you know about them. You know, they can just you can just plan around it. So that's where Mary Alice is coming from, and she gives some really, really cool actionable steps in that episode. So definitely check that out. Take your notepad out. We've got some really good feedback from that episode so far. So definitely, yeah, go back to that one. Even if you are a very successful creative entrepreneur or artist or anything, it's a good reminder on how to really even just communicating your creative ideas to people that aren't so creative. It's really, really, really good. So yeah, definitely go back.
Yeah. I think that was my main takeaway from the conversation as well, was very similar to what you said. It's basically around the whole issue of being overconfident with regards to the response to your work. Because something that may be amazing to you may not actually work once it's placed in the market. So it's just really understanding, test your assumptions, look at the competition, look at what's already out there, you know, canvas your potential audience to find out, you know, like, I've made this piece of work, is it viable? And other thing that really stood out for me is also being very conscious of the company that you keep. As you said, that's one of the main downfalls as creatives. Yeah. Being conscious of the people who are around you, and not necessarily just because people always bring you down, but also look at the people who you can potentially collaborate with. That's because no man is an island.
That's right.
So it's a very, very, very powerful episode, and I think the good thing about listening back to that episode is that she's a CEO of Created United. So she's the sort of person who, if you're ever trying to access funding and anything like that to really help you to scale up with regards to whatever your creative outlet may be, you need to listen to that episode to really get an understanding about the importance of having a business plan, the importance of planning, the importance of having a vision for what you're doing outside of just being creative. Yeah. Because if you're just stuck in the creative bubble, that's fine if it's just a hobby, but if it's something that you want to turn into a business, you're going to have to actually start to think about it as a business and really exploring how you can make money from it. And a business plan doesn't necessarily have to be a huge, overwhelming document. No. It's really just about setting your vision and working towards that vision. And business plans are supposed to be iterative as well. They're supposed to constantly change over time because the world changes. Exactly. And we're talking about Instagram, WhatsApp today, but, you know, do you remember BlackBerry?
Right, MySpace,
all of that. So it just really shows you that you can have a plan in place, but you also have to be flexible. Yes. But you need to have a plan.
Absolutely. Definitely. So definitely check back that episode if we haven't already sold it to you in this section.
Yeah, and check out other episodes as well. So you remember when we mentioned earlier Ryan's conversation with Wale.
Wale
and Adeyemi. You know, Wale Adeyemi, and you know, how he went through a whole episode where people counterfeited his garments, and how he overcame that, and the lessons that he actually learned from that. Because I remember from that conversation, he didn't walk away bitter.
No.
He actually walked away thinking, what can I do to improve my craft, and how can I explore different outlets to sell my products?
Yeah. And how do you stay ahead of the game? And also taking the positive aspects of, that's essentially marketing. Like, my brand has got so big and trendy that now the knockoffs are doing like extra marketing for me. Now I need to stay 3 steps ahead. Like, what's the next brand? What's the next thing? What's the next trend?
It's kind of like a catch-22, because if no one's copying your stuff, that must mean they're not that great.
Exactly.
Yes, I think that's a nice way to end it. I've
definitely.
really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too, definitely.
Let us know what you guys think of these conversations as well. I think this is now our 3rd one.
Yeah.
So if you're enjoying these, you're enjoying hearing a little bit about us and, our views on different topics, please do let us know. Until then, remember to subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you haven't done so, I'm like, what are you really waiting for? Like, obviously you're here, you're listening, so you're coming back.
Just do it.
Tell a friend and leave a review.
Please leave a review. We need more reviews. We get a lot of good feedback with like DMs and things like that, but the rest of the world doesn't see that. So if you can definitely leave a review, that would be really helpful. Please, thanks.
Yeah, follow us on socials as well. Catch us on Instagram at For The Creators Podcast, and on Twitter at _The Creators.
That's it. And our website as well. So www.forthecreators.show. And you're going to get all the episodes there. If you don't get them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on the million other places you can hear it, at least you can get it there.
Yeah, links always in all of our bios as well.
That's right,
so
exactly.
Easy access. But yeah, thank you very much for your ears.
Yes.
And look out for the next episode, which is going to be with another amazing creative. Cheerio.
See you later.